What is going on, folks? Birdland, this is Fowl Ball Talk with Tim Malarkey and myself, Matt Trigger. We have a very special guest tonight to talk about the first half of the season, the trade outlook for the deadline in a couple weeks, and the second half projections. AJ Gersh from Fox 45 Baltimore. AJ was kind enough to give us some time in between news telecast. AJ, thank you so much for joining the show. We really appreciate you joining. How's everything going, man?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. I remember the last time that we talked, Matt. I was still in Springfield, Illinois,
Yes,
anchoring morning newscasts. So I'm happy to offer a little bit of actual hometown flavor this time.
absolutely. It's been a little bit of a tough first half, as you know, covering the team every night. Tim and I have been covering the team on a somewhat consistent basis this year. Uh, Tim and I have
It's hard to stay motivated with this product right now.
we are motivationally challenged right now, but we just started the second half of the season tonight. We had the All-Star break this week. Ryan O'Hearn was our lone All-Star. He's been one of the few bright spots in a somewhat dim and gloom like season, AJ. So Tim and I always usually spout off and give our little rants here and there. Since you're our guest, what has been the thought process for you for this first half of this Orioles season?
You know, what's so frustrating is that the past month and a half has actually been really fun baseball to watch for the most part. It's just so unfortunate that this team started out going as low as 18 under 500. And of course, there are many reasons for that, starting with the rotation just coming out and Charlie Morton looking like the Charlie Morton that we're seeing tonight for those first however many starts, as opposed to the guy who was pitching in a 2.5 ERA range the last 2 months. Then Kyle Gibson, who just retired, came in and was awful. And then the bats weren't hitting for the first couple months of the season. And then all of a sudden something clicked after Brandon Hyde got fired. And the Orioles looked like one of the best teams in the East, if not the best team in the East. Of course, the AL Beast is back, but talk about that a little bit later. But the Orioles are an interesting team because when you look at them on paper, it doesn't seem like it's gone as bad as it's gone. At least statistic-wise, you were talking about how Ryan O'Hearn was a lone bright spot, or one of the lone bright spots. But I looked down the roster, and there's like 5 or 6 guys who have had solid seasons. It's not that their bat has look at Ramon Laureano, who's surprised everybody. But unfortunately, they dug themselves into a hole so unfathomably deep that it's just become now impossible to get out of. And over the next week and 6 days, we're going to see just how different this team ends up looking, right? Because of the trade deadline and all these guys and expiring contracts. And there's going to be a lot of them who are no longer going to be Orioles after the end of the month.
Yep, and I think that's what Matt and I were excited to get to and talk to you about. First, AJ, really appreciate you hopping on, giving us your time tonight. My man's a working man. He's in the office, in the dojo right now. So we really, really appreciate that. It's been a little while since we've been live, Matt. So as it stands right now, we're halfway through the season. They're playing right now is the first game of the second half. They're losing. I think it was 4-0 last time I looked. 5-0.
5 now.
So yeah. 43-52 as it stands right now. 9 games under 500. People want to talk about, but we're still out of the, we're still in it. We're still in it for the wild card spot. Just to put it in perspective for you, while yes, we could potentially go on a run, right? Say we go on a run, we played really good ball, we make it happen. The problem is that there's 7 teams in front of us that also would have to move out of the way, so to speak. 3 of them in our division. I mean, wild card right now is New York, Boston, Seattle, I believe. Tampa Bay is 1 game back. Rangers are 3 games back. Angels, Twins, Royals are 4 games back. Guardians 5 games back. And you have us, the Orioles, at 8. So, yes, sure, technically it's possible, but I'm a numbers guy. You know that, Matt. And
you're a nerd.
It is, to put it lightly, not happening.
Yeah. AJ, I know that this is your first time joining us on Fowl Ball Talk, but I was very hard on this team very early in the year, and
were you, Matt?
I was on the championing of I was championing the dismissal of Brandon Hyde, and I think that one of our most highly viewed shows was the night that he got fired, and we did a special on that. It's been rough because Mansolino seems like he's trying his best, but this is just a very inconsistent ball team, and it seems like every time we take a couple steps forward, it's 10 steps back. The injuries have just gotten to be overwhelming. AJ, this pitching staff that we're trotting out here every day, with the exception of Dean and Charlie Morton, everybody else has been banged up, and we're seeing guys that really shouldn't be making starts at the major league level right at this time, going out there and throwing every 5th day. It seems like Sagano has essentially hit the wall of being a rookie, and just the workload and the difference in talent that he faces. Brandon Young's been banged up and down. Cade Povich is on the IL. We heard today Grayson's has elbow discomfort yet again, and it seems to me we're probably not going to see Grayson until 2027. I think that the Tommy John surgery is inevitable.
Yeah.
And I said that at the beginning of the year on our show. A lot of people told me I was crazy. And I said, Grayson, we did a prediction show for the season, and everybody had to make a bold prediction, and I said Grayson Rodriguez won't throw for the Orioles in 2025, and it's coming into fruition. And I hate to be wrong about that, but I hate to be right about that. But it's really tough seeing the talent on this team offensively not live up to the expectations. Some guys been banged up. Jordan Westberg getting hurt really hurt us this year in the first half. Tyler O'Neill hasn't really given us anything. Cedric Mullins is having another down year. So there's a lot to point to, AJ. There's really a lot to point to.
There's so much to point to when you're taking a look at a team that's 9 games under 500. And there is so much momentum at the beginning of this month, at the end of June. I do want to push back a little bit on what you said about Mansolino and the Orioles since he's taken over. Considering they've been one of the best teams in the American League East. They have a winning record. Yeah, every team, if you look at across the league, is going to have their high highs and their low lows. That's just baseball. There's 162 games in the season. It's just that this team dug itself into such a hole that even going 26-14 isn't going to help a team that was 18 games under 500. And then you finally get to a place where you're within striking distance of maybe making some noise, and you go out and have the series that you did against Miami to go into the All-Star break to really set you back. And that really was kind of the last the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say, of this season, is that there was hope that this team could maybe be somewhat of a mover and a shaker going into the trade deadline if they could have gotten to 5 or 6 games under 500 by the All-Star break. But the fact that you go and you lose a couple games, big games too, after winning 2 straight series. By the way, the Mets series completely sweepable, and they blew that game in game 1. But he almost had 2 straight sweeps against good teams, and then to put up a performance like that the weekend heading into the All-Star game is just brutal. But the injuries are exactly, Matt, like you were talking about how Jordan Westberg being hurt this team. And I think that more than anything was really the inception of the horrible start. Was you had Westberg hurt, you had Kowser hurt in the first series on that slide into first base, which, mind you, ridiculous, the second time that he did that. And to lose those types of glue guys early in the season, it is so killer for a baseball team to have guys who is 1 inch away from being the rookie of the year and an all-star, and you don't have them going into your month of May. That's problematic, right? So they just started so far behind the 8 ball, and now you're sitting at a point where after tonight likely going to be 10 games under 500, and you got a week and change into the trade deadline. I would be shocked if the expiring contracts remain into August.
And I do want to ask you about that, because you put a video out on your Instagram highlighting how this team could look drastically different in 2 weeks' time, and it's cool that you decided you accepted our invite for the show. But before we go to that, speaking of trades from the last couple of years, Kyle Stowers really put it to us on Sunday, hitting 3 monster home runs.
Oh, that was so brutal.
It's brutal watching it, but the thing is, it's not to say I told you so, and it's not to, hindsight being 2020 kind of thing.
Matt, what did I tell you at the start of that series?
He was going to destroy us.
I said I can't wait to watch Stowie park a couple on Utah Street,
and it just so happened to be all on the same day.
Yeah.
Not only that, but he never got his chance to get consistent at bats here at this level, because he was stuck at like the end of that rebuild, to where he wasn't really given a fair opportunity, because Hyde was still trotting out 4A guys, and he just so happened to be one of them. But they tinkered with his swing, they tinkered with his approach at the plate, and he is an all-star this year. Now on the flip side, Trevor Rogers has been a pleasant surprise for the last 2 months, but he hasn't been a pleasant surprise for the last season and a half. And I feel like they're doing the same thing with both Kobe Mayo and Heston Kjerstad. And if you do it with one player, you can kind of get away with it. But if Heston and Kobe end up on different teams at some point this year or next year, and they replicate what Stowers did in Miami, that's going to be a very bad look for this organization in terms of developing talent, because the way it looks is Mike Elias can't develop talent outside of having a top 10 pick. And I think Gunnar might be the exception to having a Westberg and Gunnar being the lone exceptions.
I just got to say, I love having AJ on here to push back on you, because it's exhausting sometimes for me to be
because I'm stubborn, because I am a pessimist and I'm a realist. It's good for the ebbs and flows of the show, Timothy.
It is.
You can't have AJ. You've been in the business a long time, and we're kind of sorta in the business. You can't have 2 people on screen that agree with everything each other says. There's no point in watching it.
Yeah, you think Stephen A. and Skip Bayless got as big as they are because they agreed on everything?
Yeah.
There's no fun in that. And I've lost my mind on a couple of these shows in the last couple of months. But like you said, the expiring contracts aren't going to be here. Some of them, most of them shouldn't be. Ryan O'Hearn, it's going to break a lot of people's hearts. Tim's in particular, because Tim and his wife Stephanie Love the O'Hearn family. They met him at a Orioles, I think, bartending event or something that they
Yeah.
of
Birdland
the
Caravan, probably.
Caravan, Jimmy's Famous Seafood,
yeah.
shout out.
So I do believe that it's going to hurt a lot of Birdland, but I think O'Hearn probably holds more value than most of the guys with expiring contracts. And Cedric Mullins is hitting like 210 right now, but he provides exceptional defense, speed on the base path. So he holds some value. I'm not saying he's going to get a lot in return, but there's Andrew Kittredge, there's Zach Eflin, there's Soto, Dominguez, Mountcastle. There's a lot of guys that Charlie Morton. There's a lot of guys that are seemingly on the proverbial chopping block. Sugano, do you think that there's a chance that they move none or all of these guys or some?
I think that the answer is inevitably going to be some. There and I would
100%.
lean more toward closer to most
Yes.
than less, right? I think looking at Ryan O'Hearn, like you said, I think he's probably on his way out. They even said it during the All-Star broadcast, which I thought was in poor taste.
Yeah, that was rough. That one hurt a little bit.
I thought that was a little bit in poor taste to kind of take away from his moment as a first-time All-Star and just say, "Oh, well, the Orioles stink, so he's probably not going to be a member of the Orioles past the trade deadline." Come on, man. But I don't think Ryan O'Hearn will be with the Orioles until August, just because he does offer some great value at this point. 2 years in a row, he was a finalist for the All-Star game. This year, he finally got over the hump. He actually plays really solid defense at first place, better than as expected out of a guy who primarily has been a DH. And we've seen over the past couple months since Mountcastle hit the IL that he's more than capable at first base, and I think other teams have seen that. So he'll probably be gone. And then I think that you gotta allow for Kobe Mayo. I also, it's funny that you mentioned the Instagram video about the trade prospects of these guys, because last week I put out an Instagram video saying pretty much exactly what you said, is that the Orioles can't keep their prospects flip-flopping between AAA and Baltimore, and then as soon as they get hot in Baltimore, say, "Oh, you know what? We're just gonna keep you on the bench until there's a spot that opens up due to injury." Like, Kobe Mayo needs to be playing every day if you're going to foreseeably have him at first base into the future, right? So this trade of O'Hearn will inevitably open up a role for Mayo to play every day at first base. So that's kind of my first point in the trade situation.
And
Cedric Mullins,
not to cut you off, but to mention too the fact that if the season is going the way it is now, there's not a better time to get your guys in there to play. That necessarily, if we were making a run, maybe you wouldn't lean that way. But right now, I mean,
for sure. I mean, like, you take a look at when Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman were brought up. Same situation where kind of a sort of a lost season. You have a couple guys. They need everyday minutes, everyday playing time. There's no better opportunity than a team that's kind of washing away towards the end of the year. And that's a good opportunity for Mayo. And similarly, the same thing can be said in the outfield, whether that's giving Heston Kjerstad one more chance, which I think is going to happen, right? You have to at this point. He was a second overall pick, for God's sake. Like, he's going to get at bats. It's just a matter of who gets moved. Is it going to be Cedric Mullins? Is it going to be Ramon Laureano, who has a team option? I don't think they should trade Laureano. I think that would be silly, because you have a team option. Yeah, he's a cheap option with a great arm in right field, or wherever you want to put him, right or left, corner outfielder, and he's got a good bat too. So I don't think you should trade Laureano, but also he does offer a lot of value. But then you got guys in AAA also who really should be in the bigs if you're running out a scenario like the 2021 Orioles or 22 Orioles, in that Dylan Beavers is hitting 330 in AAA right now. Yep. And he looks like the real deal. Judd Fabian looks like the real deal. There's a bunch of guys who need
Dylan Beavers.
Dylan Beavers, exactly. They need at bats in the big leagues.
And we're going to see Enrique Bradfield too.
Eventually, Enrique is going to need to play. You draft him for a reason. So, but for the time being, it's like you move Kazar over to center if you trade Mullins, then you put Laureano out there, and then Beavers comes up, Kerstag comes up. You get everyone some at bats, and you mix them in and see who sticks, so to speak. And then this rotation is going to be torn apart. You said Brandon Young shouldn't be getting starts. Well, Brandon Young's going to get a lot more starts
very soon.
Yeah. It's gonna feel like my ribs are cracking in my chest.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Charlie Morton's on an expiring contract. He's pitched so well before tonight. So he's probably going to offer up some good value. Sagano teams are going to see what he did for the first 3 months of the season and say, oh, we know how to get that out of him. And so he'll probably get some good value too. Probably not as much as Morton, but definitely some. Eflin, there's going to be a front office who says, oh, we know what Zach Eflin is capable of. We're willing to part with a 5 or a 6 prospect in our organization for a guy like that, So
you're looking at 3 starters right there, AJ.
Right, 3 starters off the roster. If I was Elias and I was the guy answering the call, I would say, let's just wipe it clean with those 3 and roll with some hodgepodge of Dean Kramer, Trevor Rogers, Cade Povich once he gets healthy, Brandon Young, and then whoever else.
Figure it out. Yep.
So the elephant in the room, and the rumor has circulated more frequently the last couple of days.
You're about to ask the mountain question, aren't you?
This is a mountain of a question. If the perfect scenario, an undeniable trade proposal happens with 2.5 years of control, do you move Felix Bautista in hopes of acquiring some ready-to-go youth if the situation presents itself?
Well, my question would be, what ready-to-go youth do the Orioles need that's willing to part ways with one of the best closers in baseball?
See,
what position do the Orioles need a top prospect other than starting pitcher?
That's where I had an answer for you, because I talked to Tim about this earlier today.
Okay.
In preparation for the show. The perfect trade scenario the perfect trade partner to me, in theory, is the Detroit Tigers. They need a bona fide closer with the team they got this year, like a slam the door type of move. You go and ask them for one of their top bats, and you ask for Jackson Jobe, who is currently 5-1 at the major league level.
Here come the Twins, Matt. Here come the Twins.
I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this. So that's, to me, I didn't look at 15 teams. I looked at a couple, but to me, it makes the most sense that if you're willing to move Bautista, it needs to be some team like Detroit that has a major league young guy that they just brought up that's proven, and then a bat, preferably a right-handed bat, that is on the cusp of being major league ready. We're inundated with left-handed hitters, so acquiring a right-handed hitter would be valuable. And a couple of the pieces, I don't say move Bautista for 1 or 2 of these guys. It would need to be a 4 or 5 prospect package with a top arm and or top bat coming back to Baltimore. Now that's just me.
It would need to be a massive deal with that much left on his contract, right? Because earlier when we talked to Mike Elias a couple months ago, and we asked him it wasn't even a couple months ago, it was a couple weeks ago after the Brian Baker trade. And we said, is this you starting a rebuild? This is a start of a rebuild, or why are you trading a guy with several years of control? And he said, no, it was just kind of the opportunity. The pick was too good that they were offering up, and you couldn't say no for a guy like Brian Baker for this 37 overall pick, which I understand. And then he continued in saying that in no way will moves that the Orioles make at the deadline indicate his want for a rebuild again. He said he's done with the rebuild and he's retooling to be competitive in 2026. If Mike Elias trades Felix Bautista, he lied in saying that.
Yep.
That's fair.
He which I don't think that it would be a bad thing so to say, if he does trade Felix Bautista. I obviously, as an Orioles fan, nobody wants to see Felix Bautista in any other uniform. But if a deal comes back with a top arm, a top bat, 3 other prospects that you can't say no to, sure, you pull the trigger and do it. But that doesn't indicate a team that is willing to compete in 2026.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. That's saying, okay, you know what? We're folding it for the next 2 years, 3 years, and we're looking to 2028 to try to make a run once you got Ike Irish up on the ball club, right? So it would be totally indicative of him saying, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel, not just for this season, but for next season as well, maybe even the year after that.
And I've been doing a lot of reading from different pundits, columnists, everybody tossing this idea around all across, the internet, listening to the radio, watching shows, and a lot of people seem to want to fall back to you could have Tyler Wells close. He's been in that position before. There's 2 things that I want to address about that issue right there. One, we saw what happens when you need to replace a closer last year when Felix got hurt.
Yeah.
The Craig Kimbrell experiment. We know how hard it is, and there's a reason why so many other teams value and chase after that closing position, because it's a dime a dozen. It's a dime 2 dozen, actually. And it's, and a position that is not easy to fill. So you already have someone that's under control for 3 years that you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about that barring injury. The Tyler Wells thing is kind of laughable to me because, you want the guy who gave up 25 home runs in 118 innings to come in and be your high leverage guy. I get it. I know the talent's there, sure. But like I tell Matt all the time, numbers don't lie,
Yes, they do.
Oh, man.
So
I agree with you completely, Tim.
I think that would be a smoke signal to, we are not looking to be competitive in 2026 and 2027. We're chalking it up 2029. That's where we're at. I think I have 2 big trades that I think are plausible and what is more likely what we'll see. Obviously, Ryan O'Hearn is the big one. He carries the most value. I think the Brewers will probably – it's funny because if you read about teams that are interested in trades for whether it be Mullins or O'Hearn or whatever the situation is, there's always the same 3 teams, and it happens to be the same 3 teams that we've done business with before a lot of the time, and that's the Brewers, the Phillies, and the San Diego Padres. I don't mind the Brewers trade. They have insane depth right now in their farm system as well as far as pitching is concerned. You can go down that list for a while. It's same with the Padres. I think 4 of their top 5 prospects are pitchers. So, there's value to be had there. My main worry, we could talk trade scenarios all day and who you think is going to get involved and what teams are going to do what. My biggest concern, I would say, and worry is, because I haven't been shown otherwise, is that we sit on our hands through this deadline, through the offseason, and that not much gets done to try and make this team competitive in 2026. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. And I would honestly even say that more so than that is I think people might have a skewed reality as to what potential trades could garner. Like how much value does Ryan O'Hearn truly offer on the trade block.
Right.
And I'll go out and tell you probably exactly. We'll be able to clip this in a week and a half, and you'll be able to say, yeah, this is exactly what the Orioles got for Ryan O'Hearn. If they do trade him, they'll get 2 middling minor league starters.
Yep.
That'll be the return, and everyone will be really upset about that. But you have to remember that a lot of these trades that will happen in the next week and change are not going to help the Orioles for 2026. They're just not. What they're going to do is set the Orioles up for past then, but also allow them to still get something in return for guys who aren't going to sign here regardless. So at the deadline, unless you trade a guy like Felix Bautista, unless you trade an Adley Rutschman, even with Basayo waiting in the wings and 2 catchers being drafted in the first round this year, you're not going to get anything back that helps for next season. You're just not. No matter who you give up, who you package, you're not going to get the player that you want that's going to start on the Orioles in 2026. So fans just got to brace themselves to be disappointed, because out of the players who are on expiring contracts, the value will not get back what people might be expecting. So I just want to put that into the universe.
Yep. And what I hope with that is that we do get 2 or 3 middling level prospects that clearly wouldn't make the team better, but we're not using them as a setup for 3 or 4 years in hopes that these guys are going to play for us. We're using them in the winter to package them together in 3 or 4 bulk deals and bring in true players that will be starting in 2026.
Exactly.
That's like putting a tooth under my pillow for the tooth fairy kind of thing.
And if will Elias do what he did last offseason more than once, even, like, right? Because the Corbin Burns thing, that now in hindsight, then it looked like, oh man, Orioles are serious. They're going to start doing this. They're going to start offering contracts too. But now they're like, okay, what is this going to even happen one more time ever? To get an all-star player in the offseason, whether that be by trade or free agency? Who knows?
I'm not going to go down that road. We went down this road many times, AJ. And me banging on the table and echoing those sentiments have been well documented in this partnership. Yeah. I knew he was going to do it. That's why I just waited for a second, AJ. He has a little music box that he loves to play when I start on my tangents. But let me ask you this with Elias. This will be the 3rd straight trade deadline. We're expecting Elias to make some moves. Now, if he does what Tim just alluded to, where he sits on his hands and does nothing, do you trust that he will lead us in the right direction in the 3rd straight offseason, coming off of a disappointing season? Because no matter how many regular season games we've won, we won 193 wins in 23 and 24. And here we are on pace to have an astronomical drop in wins again. So I would consider that disappointing by any standard. If he doesn't go and make moves at this deadline, it's showing that he believes he is right in his approach above all else. So if that's not going to change for the 3rd straight deadline, why should we have any faith that he is not going to change for the 3rd straight offseason?
I think that last year's deadline was a success. I do. I think that Elias made moves last year at the deadline that made the Orioles a much better team. Whether or not it was last year or whether or not that was looking forward to the future. You brought in Zach Eflin, who
That's fair.
was fantastic in the back half of last year. And then, yeah, everyone talks about the Trevor Rogers deal. Whatever you want to think about the Trevor Rogers deal. At the time of that deal, that was a good deal. It was. if you don't agree with me, then you don't agree with me. But in my eyes, it was the same situation of trading a Heston Kjerstad. It's just you traded the wrong player. You traded Stowers instead of Kjerstad. But like last, I just needed to say that last trade deadline, Mike Elias, I think, actually made appropriate moves and went out and got 2 starting pitchers that were at that point pretty solid. Now, one of them panned out, one of them didn't last year, and now it's flip-flopped into this season, which is ironic,
Yeah.
right? But if he doesn't make any trades at the deadline this year, then you have to think one of 2 things in that. Number one, they better give O'Hearn and or Mullins or both extensions that are team friendly, or have them lined up for an extension, which that would be the only reason that I would say they don't trade the 2 of them, is if they're going to give Mullins a 3-year extension, and same for O'Hearn at team friendly cost, I'll say. Or it was a failure. I mean, if moves don't get made and those extensions don't happen to the offseason, then yeah, sure, you could say that. But I don't think you can definitively say, oh, here we go again, because there's too much. Baseball is a long season, and the off season is long as well. So like, you gotta take into consideration what happens at the trade deadline doesn't directly correlate to next year's ball club until the off season is finished as well.
And that's fair, but I'm also asking this question with the 2024 into 2025 off season still leaving a pretty bad taste in my mouth with the whole Corbin Burns situation and the Morton and Sugano signings. I was critical. I owe Charlie Morton an apology for the things that I said on this.
I think everyone does, probably.
Yeah. I find it hard to trust anything this organization says or does if they go now, like you said, if they offer extensions and they're signed, that's reasonable. On the off chance that they don't move a lot of these guys and they let a lot of these guys go in free agency and we receive nothing, that is going to infuriate a good portion of your loyal fan base. So Elias has got to decide relatively soon. I'm talking days, whether he wants to get rid of these expiring contracts and get something, or sign some of these guys and let some of them walk. Now, we're also not even talking about the possibility that some of these guys, like you said earlier, might not even want to be here anymore.
Most of them probably.
Right. If I'm Zach Eflin, I'm not re-signing here.
Right. Everyone except for O'Hearn and Mullins, I think, are probably gone regardless.
I would, if I'm Soto and Dominguez, I'm not re-signing here.
Yeah, Gary Sanchez is gone, obviously, with Basayo on the wings. I mean, all of the expiring contracts. I mean, Sugano maybe because you don't really know anything else. Would re-sign on another 1-year deal if the Orioles wanted him back. But aside from Sugano and the 2 position players, everyone's gone, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, get something for him if you're going to let him walk, because that's not going to help the purpose of retooling the farm and getting some cavalry in waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
It's a truly difficult situation because a lot of the Orioles fans, us as well included in this, we get attached to our guys and we overvalue them for what they should be fetching in trades. Now, I'll say this: I'll be a little pissed if I see on my phone pop up in a couple of days, Sir Anthony Dominguez is traded to the Philadelphia Phillies for cash considerations or a player to be named.
Right.
Like that's almost as
that'll
bad
be the
as
Gregory Soto deal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dominguez will actually garner some value. And that was a great trade. Like that was a solid trade. And he's been very solid for the Orioles. But he, out of everyone else on the list. You know, Charlie Morton might get a little bit in return. Eflin less so. Sagano even less so. I think Dominguez outside of O'Hearn has probably the highest return value.
I agree.
Just because, and I said it on Instagram as well, relievers come at an extreme premium at the trade deadline. And teams are looking for relievers who are headed toward the postseason. So for a guy who has under a 3, does he have under a 3 ERA? I think he does. Yeah, and he's been really solid this season and last. Of course, he was thrust into a sort of like pseudo closer role last year, which was not exactly where he's always been comfortable. But now that he's not in that role, he's been really solid. And so, yeah, I think that he's probably gone, but it won't be for cash considerations, Matt.
No.
Yeah.
I actually saw something worked up, mock trades. Matt knows I read this stuff all day long. I take them all with a grain of sand, but one that I actually did was the Phillies sending 3 or 4 middle of the level prospects that weren't really, any household names that any fan in Baltimore would know, right? You would get 3 or 4 guys back that we would all have to hop on Google real quick and type their name in and be like,
right,
who is this guy? Right. But it
was
be
like, oh, this is horrible. The Orioles got placed.
Cedric Mullins and Sir Anthony, both because the Phillies are looking for bullpen help, and they also are looking for that center fielder, that defense, that speed on the bases. He could pinch hit, situational kind of guy that Cedric Mullins brings. They have a need for that. And if you could package, I would say 2 of the top 5 or 4 most valuable pieces that will be moved inevitably together to kind of net some kind of pocket full of shekels to go into, the winter with, and say, hey, look at all this stuff that I can package together and actually bring some people in here. I'm cool with that. That's exactly what I think needs to happen, what I want to happen. But I do still, because I know that Mike Elias has his ways to push his buttons and crunch his numbers, that inevitably there will be 1 or 2 trades that come back as cash considerations or something along that lines, and everyone's going to be like, what in the world was that? But
exactly.
Yeah. I told Zach earlier, or not Zach, oh my God, Freudian slip. I was talking to him earlier to Tim, but Tim, I told you earlier when we were talking, I think we can get Mick Abel from Philadelphia.
For what?
Mullins.
Plus,
there's no way.
No, it's
there's
no chance.
Okay, AJ.
There's no world in which the Phillies are giving Mick
I didn't
Abel
say
for-
by himself.
for
I didn't say by himself. I think we would have to send something else with Mullins.
You think we're getting Painter straight up for Laureano?
No, Painter's untouchable. I know Painter's untouchable. But AJ, I'm going to give you numbers. Something
Okay. Let's hear them. Yeah.
Last year, Abel's last year in the minor leagues, his ERA was north of 6.
Yep.
This year, his ERA is north of 5. So, in the majors.
Right.
So, if you're going to buy low on a prospect or a major league ready guy, Abel is more attainable than Painter. If you're going to go to Philadelphia for anything.
Well, yeah, for sure. You're right.
So that's my justification. I'm not saying Mullins for Abel straight up. That's not what I'm saying. I know we have to take something else to go with Mullins. Now, is it Sir Anthony? Is it Soto? Is it Kittredge? Is it Sugano? Is it
Send
somebody?
all of the Philly relievers back to Philly.
Right. Because our bullpen is Philly South. I think Abel is attainable if you package the right people. I don't think Mullins by himself gets it done. I've even said you could possibly send Mountcastle there too.
I'm worried that okay, so the whole Abel discourse for a second, I just wanted to he had a solid start to the year in the minors for Philadelphia, right, in AAA. He was so good that everyone, yeah, wait, this is exactly the point that I'm about to make, though. He just popped up, is that his trade value, everyone's talking about him like he's like, the best piece of pie, but in reality, he's not what the Orioles fans who have had all these mock trades think that he probably is. And also, he's not going to be I don't think that he's attainable in a trade package with any of the guys who are on expiring contracts, because I think the Phillies value him way higher than what he actually is, and I think so do Orioles fans for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting Abel to be like the be-all, end-all solution, but
my point being is that I also don't think that the Orioles can get him because his value to the Phillies organization, I think, is so high. So and it's so funny though. Every year at the trade deadline, there are like these like hot names that everyone loves including in mock trades that just either never end up traded or they end up getting traded and then they stink. So it's just the whole mock trade, the whole mock trade, world is so funny to me, because at the end of the day, 99% of the trades that happen are like a guy on expiring contracts for two minor league guys that nobody's ever heard of.
Yep, and they come out of nowhere. Like I did not see one person 3 weeks ago talking about Brian Baker being any sort of possibility.
Right.
I even got the notification and was like, huh?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's comical. I think if you've been around and watched it enough, we all know what's going to happen. We're going to get a couple of notifications of players that we don't know, and that's going to be what it is.
Yeah, and then one of them will have like a 2.9 ERA and high A, and everyone's going to get so hyped.
Excited. Yeah.
Everyone's going to, and then that guy will never be heard from again.
I feel exposed right now.
Yeah, but this guy has a 2.9 ERA. Oh man.
Yep.
It's always fun though. Trade deadline's so fun,
It is fun. It's honestly my favorite time of the year. It's even better when my team's winning, but
it's way better.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite time of the year.
I just received a text from my brother. He's watching our show right now, AJ, and he wants me to ask you this question. It has to do with one of our pitchers. We're talking about, we talked earlier about the possibility of Felix. He and I share a similar belief, and I've said it on this show. I've said it in group chats. I've talked with him about it. Not knowing what is to come with Grayson Rodriguez, but if he was not hurt, do you think Grayson Rodriguez would be able to have the transition to a closer role that Zach Britton did and be effective?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, but I mean, unfortunately,
we know he's not going to be seen for a while.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a situation where because he's so historically injury prone, the Orioles, when they do inevitably bring him back, will want to make the transition into him being a bullpen guy or a closer, because at that point, maybe so far out in the future, Felix Bautista is not on the team anymore, right? So that's definitely something that's realistic. I don't think that you can count that out, but it's just so, I mean, oh God, I feel so bad for the guy, because all of the hype in the world surrounding him, people were talking before this season or before last season, like extend Grayson Rodriguez now, like as a young guy, and give him 6-year contract for $100+ million.
Yep.
So
the gas cans at Bowie Bay Sox.
Right. So for the fact that it's gone from that to, we're talking about the potential of him missing this season, potentially missing next season, even if the injuries don't get better and they opt for the Tommy John route.
The verbiage scared me on that too. It wasn't like, oh, he tweaked himself in his warm up. It was, he's shut down again. And I don't know. It's
unfortunately, in baseball, there are guys who just have compounding injury issues, and that's like a real thing with baseball more than anything else, especially when you're talking about lats and elbows, and those are and shoulders. Like for a pitcher, it's a death sentence in terms of landing yourself on the IL. And sadly, for the last year and a half, that's what's happened with G-Rod.
Now, before we wrap up the show,
I was gonna say we got to get this guy live on air.
I know he's going to be on air soon. Before we wrap the show, AJ, do you believe that the amount of injuries that is happening to the Orioles, particularly with the pitching staff, do you believe that there's something wrong with the training aspect of this organization and the team health, or do you think that this is just a series of unfortunate events?
I think it's more so the latter. I really do. It's so challenging, and people can say and think what they want, right? Everyone has the right to their own opinions when it comes to members of a coaching staff or a training staff, and you can talk about what happened with the Ravens 2 years ago and their training staff, and then what happens when you switch up a training staff the year following, and the contrast between those two. So I think maybe I'll let that answer that question more so than anything else. But it is just unfortunate. But really, you don't know that until there's a change, right?
Right.
You would never know.
I appreciate the insight on that.
I got one final question for AJ too. I don't know if you saw. I know you did because you're very active on social media. Did you find it at all interesting or any kind of signal from the warehouse, so to speak, that they just out of nowhere started construction in the middle of the season out underneath the Jumbotron? Is that not weird to anyone?
It is a little weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought the same thing. I'm like, whoa, what's going on there? But I think that's well, first of all, Rubenstein is obsessed with upgrading Camden Yards, which I respect for sure. Don't get me wrong, I respect that out of him. But the fact that it's happening in the middle of the season is a little interesting. They're probably getting ready to make that Jumbotron really, really, really cool, because it's, and everyone who goes to Orioles games could agree with me, it is well overdue for an upgrade. That's like the most it's the most out of date Jumbotron in the entire MLB. So they're probably expanding it.
We're going to like the 6th largest, 5th or 6th. I can't remember what it was, but
it'll be pretty cool once it's done, and I'm excited to see it. But also along the lines of that, opening the pocketbook for the outfield and the Jumbotron, maybe the pocketbook will be opened a little bit further in the off season for some free agents. That would be nice, right?
That would be very nice. I'm not expecting anything major, but it would be nice to get a couple arms here,
or maybe just an extension, right? Maybe even just an extension to start. Extend Gunnar Henderson, right? Or Cowser or Westberg.
Jordan Westberg, yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we can move Adley Rutschman to first base.
That too. That would, all valid options, fellas.
Or just make him the DH and let him hit 300 from being a DH all year long. That would be nice. Yeah, I'm not going to go on my Adley Rutschman soapbox, but AJ, thank you so much for giving us just shy of an hour of your time. We love the fact that you're back home after traveling the country for your profession. You're back where you belong, covering the Orioles and the Ravens. Tim and I are so thankful for you, everybody tuning in and interacting with the show. AJ, you can let everybody know where they can find you on social media. You are a gem. You do a lot of videos and a lot of informative sports shorts. So where can everybody find you on social?
Yeah, and likewise to you guys. Thank you for having me on and letting me get on my soapbox a little bit here. I love to do it, and you guys can give me a follow at AJ Gersh TV, Instagram, X, TikTok, all the above. Appreciate what you guys do too. And anytime you want a third talking head, let me know. I would love to join you again.
Absolutely. We'll take that into consideration and get you on here before the season's over. And
Sweet.
Tim, go ahead and take us home, man.
All right. You guys know where to find us, causing a havoc on social media. Twitter's been a rough place the last couple weeks, so kind of taking it easy lately. But Fowl Ball Talk, it's MTRIG BPB. You guys know where to find us. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you soon.